Hello, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Sunshine Study. It is joyous to be with you. Today, I thought we've got a really lovely title to talk about, and I've got 5 things to share with you about unlocking your inner compass, navigating life's crossroads. Now, many of us will have crossroads at different times in our lives. Some of them will be easy, some of them will be monumentally hard. Some of them we will choose, some of them will be imposed, and sometimes they just sort of land on us really, and we don't know quite what to do. So I wanted to give 5 principles today that I often work with clients as a life coach and as somebody who's had immense amounts of illness and many crossroads to think about. Now, here's a really powerful way to start. Can you think of them as a privilege? Takes some nerve, doesn't it? But as soon as you start to think about challenge, hurdles, difficulties as this is a privilege, luxury problem, 1,000 people would swap with me and want to deal with this. Now, that's true for the vast majority of problems. There are obviously real tragedies and difficulties, which it isn't true. But if they're choices and challenges, then we can almost always look at them as, right, what do we do? What is wise? So if you start with that premise, it takes some of the sting out of it. Now, if you have a general crossroads in life, sometimes the decisions feel overwhelming. Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I go there? Do I go back? Do I go slightly there, slightly over there? And what's worrying us all the time is trying to make the perfect decision. Now, there are very few perfect decisions. What most people want is 100% evidence, and then we'll do that. What a lot of life is those kind of 60-40 decisions. And that's really difficult because you think about the 40% of evidence that's saying don't do it, but the 60% that says do. So I would tackle this from the premise of I am fortunate to have some choices and I will make the best ones I can. Now, how do we make good choices? We think about consequences. We investigate consequences. We list the values that we have now and we list the attributes of the current situation. And we can do a pros and cons list, can't we? We can do an intellectual analysis of what's wise to do. I often like a big arrow about if I do this, what would come? And then we absolutely put everything down on the big piece of wallpaper in front of me. But if you think about how you make decisions, is sometimes they just need time, if you've got time. And then you can think about consequences, outcomes, other people's influence, other people, how it will affect other people, but also there's an analytical approach to this. Now, there's also an instinctual approach to this, because what does it feel like the right thing to do and what is the wisest thing to do? And if we can marry those together, we often get the best result. So if you think about your intellectual approach to this and your instinctual. Interesting, sometimes things get landed on us in life and we think, what on earth am I going to do? And then there are things that are junctures of life and chronology. You know, we get to certain ages, most people do exams. What options do we choose? Which subjects do we choose? They're about wise choices that the vast majority of people are making at the same time. Then there are other choices that we somehow make progress and we find ourselves somewhere we didn't expect to be. And oh my goodness, this is so much more complicated than I thought. And in all of those situations, one of the wisest things we can do is give ourselves some grace around it and do the very best we can with the knowledge that we have at the time. What angsts people, especially in my client sessions with one-to-one life coaching, is that the but keeps coming. But what if? But. And I think, look, if we attach a lot of emotional, judgmental attitudes to things, it will always be more difficult. But if we can step away from that and look at what is sensible at the time, that's all we can do. Common sense isn't often common, but we can work our common sense muscles to make the best of this decision. So if we start from the premise that this is a privilege of choices. Now, to remember that transitions in life are often really wonderful things and there are glorious outcomes, but also there is stress with glorious outcomes. You'll often find people who win the lottery, it's not all wonderful. You'll often find people who do magical, great, brave things and it all works out well. But there are bits of things that didn't work well or things that have to be left behind. So if you think about most transitions when they're imposed are stressful, but most transitions when they are chosen are also stressful. So give yourself some grace around it. That's why a crossroads is a difficult thing sometimes. But sometimes it is the most glorious thing that feels unnerving at the time, but there are bountiful blessings waiting for us. There are miracles in the making if we take that step. Now, I'm not a big fan of big risks. I like small, calculated, very tiny risks. But you have to think about the catastrophic losses that there could be, or the catastrophic gains, or negate as many of the risks as possible and be as safe as possible. So if you think about that choices are a privilege and that there will be some stress with this, and to give yourself some grace and give other people grace in those positions and be with them. And I love the phrase, people worry about making the right decision, but you can make the decision right. You can make the decision better. And in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 50 years, you might look back and think, thank goodness I did it, or thank goodness I didn't do it, but I did the best I could at the time. And with that knowledge, I have grown and I can give more to myself and others. And I would make a different decision now, but I did the best I could. Or I would make the same decision. It's about how you view yourself in that moment. And one of the lovely things about life is that we often get to course correct. And there is nothing wrong with a step back or a pause or a reflection before illness imposes it on you. Sometimes if you're continually going in the wrong direction, something pulls us out of it to make us stop and think. So don't worry. I love the American phrase, you get a do-over. I've never used the phrase, it's a do-over. But there is always a new day, always a new chance, always a new opportunity that you can create. How you think, how you speak, how you behave, and how well you live and love. So crossroads, let's take out the word cross. Let's just think about which road you take. Now, I was very ill for a very long time, and lots of people had hundreds of choices in life that I didn't have. And it could have been very frustrating and heartbreaking and restricting and unfair, which it was. But it was simplified, and I can see this now with hindsight, is that there's a beautiful prayer that God says to you, I gave you the road and I taught you to drive. Off you go. But I often think, I was given the road, but I wasn't given any left or right turns. Everybody else had all these choices and roundabouts and different directions to explore. I could only do this one little thing, and I had to stick with that and be grateful for it. So if you don't have many choices and you feel there are restrictions on you, maybe there's a peace because there will be too many choices. And that will help you navigate the crossroads that you have. Because most of life is about dealing with crossroads, whether they're teeny tiny or they're massive ones, about having interactions, how to have an outcome that's desirable for everybody or as wisely constructed as you can. So if you can think wisely, behave calmly, and offer your position with logic and clarity and grace and backbone, then you are making the best of the crossroads. And if you're really, really brave, you can think, thank goodness this has come. There will be goodness after it. I can try my very best and we'll see where we are. And that brings me to my final thoughts about unlocking your inner compass, is that it takes time. And it's all right that we stumble or blunder or have bumps, because that's part of the process. We might make better decisions now than we made 5 weeks ago or 5 months ago, but that's the process. It's practice. It's like learning a language, using an instrument, learning tech, learning a business, learning YouTube, is that later on you'll be better than you were at the start. And that's part of the gracious process of seeing that you are refining your use of your compass, recognizing that you have it, and that the more you use it, the better your decision making will be. And that's really all we want from life, to make good choices with good people who also make good choices. And when those choices are less than ideal, we do our best to navigate, to course correct, and put things as well as we can. I hope that helps, my friends. Thank you for staying till the end. Please like, subscribe, and comment. We love every interaction that is constructive and helpful. And please, please, please keep being part of the Lifejoy community. We love having you. Take care, God bless, be safe, and good luck with your compass.